There is a lot to cover when it comes to talking about the massive success that is Goosebumps. So, buckle up as we look into the original 62 books, the author R.L. Stine, Tim Jacobus and his simultaneously creepy, wacky, and iconic cover art for the series, as well as offshoots of the series in the form of the 90s children's television anthology show of the same name, video games based off the series, the Disney Park attraction, and the vast assortment of series merchandise. Viewer beware, you're in for a scare. I'm Matt Braxton, and this is my Goosebumps Original Series Retrospective. It's funny, the man behind it all, Robert Stine, better known as R.L. Stine, had no idea his children's horror anthology series Goosebumps, originally slated for only a few entries, would become a sensational 62-book series. Much less the other series, movies, games, and more Goosebumps would spawn. So let's go back to that simpler time, when only the first 6 books were released. The only 6 Goosebumps books Stine was originally contracted to write, before the series would blossom into the major franchise it is today. Let's go back to 1992. Welcome to Dead House was the very first entry in the Goosebumps series. 2 kids, Josh and older sister Amanda, move into a new house in Dark Falls. Yes, this entry contributes to the moving into a new house horror trope, yet it was not as done to death as it is today. Amanda and Josh, upon moving into their new house, notice that the other kids in the town, in fact, pretty much everyone in the town, is kind of weird. Nobody likes to be out in the sun, and so many people, over and over, keep saying to them, "I used to live in your house. What is going on?" It turns out that the whole town is dead, or undead, rather. And in order to stay undead, the townspeople need to kill a family every year. And each year, the new families are brought into the same house, the Dead House. While there were some inconsistencies, especially when it comes to the dead being undead, for instance, they can fly but they can get injured. Are they zombies, vampires, ghosts? The concept didn't seem entirely fully realized. Regardless, Stine mentioned that he wishes he put more humor into this entry. However, I believe Welcome to Dead House is far better without comedy. So many times, especially in the newer installments, the humor is used in a way that lessens the impact or level of eeriness of the monster or villain. This is not to say there can't ever be goofier villains like the Egg Monsters or the Monster Blood 4 Slug Monsters, but Welcome to Dead House excelled specifically because it didn't use humor. For a children's book, Welcome to Dead House was intense. The descriptions of people's skin peeling off their faces, Ray, one of the undead children, smashing his skull open on a grave, Dawes getting his skull cracked open by a flashlight. This installment pushed the boundaries of what is okay for kids to read. In layman's terms, it was awesome. There is no doubt that the intensity of this installment helped to bring the series into the public's eye, and no doubt helped Goosebumps become one of the most challenged series in school libraries. Stay Out of the Basement was the second entry in the series, starring another brother and sister duo, Casey and Margaret. Their dad performs experiments in their basement, attempting to create a human-animal hybrid, and it seems to have worked. The plants downstairs sound like they're moaning and breathing, people who visit have gone missing, and their dad does not want them in the basement. He seems to be acting strange as well. Too strange. I know, I could write the blurbs for these, right? This installment is the epitome of don't judge a book by its cover. I've grown to appreciate it more now that I'm older, but as a kid I actually never read this one because the cover art seemed kind of bland. This book's cover art, along with the Be Careful What You Wish For cover art, were the only 2 in the main series to not be illustrated by Tim Jacobus. That said, 10 plus years later, I will admit that I missed out. This installment was better paced, had far less plot holes, and was more fun than its predecessor while still managing to be eerie and unnerving. While Stay Out of the Basement was incredibly predictable, it was also very enjoyable. The third book, Monster Blood, is truly where Stine began to lean more into comedy. Monster Blood is about a boy named Evan who had to stay with his weird old aunt for a while. During his time there, Evan meets a new friend, Andy, and they find a can of slime at a toy store. Or at least that's what the so-called Monster Blood seemed to be. But soon it starts growing uncontrollably, and not just a little. Pretty soon it's big enough to move on its own and swallow up everything in its path. While the idea of Monster Blood causing whoever ingests it to grow uncontrollably as well is interesting, and it wasn't necessarily done bad in this installment, the idea was done in later installments in increasingly comedic ways, cheapening the scary aspect of Monster Blood altogether, that it will continuously grow forever and suck up everything. This book also had many plot holes regarding how the Monster Blood came to be, which contributed to my slight dislike of it. Regardless, Monster Blood became a defining villain of the series, becoming the first villain in the series to have a direct sequel, and many after that. The fourth book in the series contained a goofy but creepy cover illustration with a very fitting title, Say Cheese and Die. This entry was fantastic and definitely played into the series' growing popularity in its early days. In the book, Greg and his friend group break into an abandoned house, or it should have been abandoned, but a local creepy dude, Spidey, was found to be camping out in the basement. Before he scares them away, they discover a camera, and what it can do is horrifying. Every time the kids take a picture, their actual pose doesn't show up on the Polaroid. Instead, what shows up is something bad happening to the photo's subject. This is, again, a fantastic entry in the series, perfectly walking the line between goofy and creepy. The reader is constantly left questioning whether the camera is truly evil, causing bad events to happen, or if the bad events were always bound to happen and the camera just predicted the future. While it is eventually somewhat answered in a seemingly rushed ending, in my opinion, that question is still open-ended. While it seems like common sense, don't take any more pictures and problem solved, there always seemed to be an extenuating circumstance that caused the pictures to be taken, or Greg simply being told he is crazy, causing him to give in and take the pictures. The fifth entry in the series, The Curse in the Mummy's Tomb, was about a boy named Gabe and his cousin Sari going on an expedition in Egypt with Gabe's dad. Gabe's dad was showing the pair the tomb that he and his team were attempting to excavate and uncover artifacts from. They learn of a curse on the tomb that causes mummies to come back to life. They just learn about it a little too late. This entry was very slowly paced, likely due to the mummies only actually coming alive in the third act, very close to the end of the book. While other entries like Night of the Living Dummy would do something similar, the environment, scares, and mysteries were more well-rounded in those entries than here. Curse of the Mummy's Tomb's sequel, Return of the Mummy, retread similar grounds regarding the plot, but felt like the version of the story we should have initially gotten. Lastly, the sixth installment, and final book in the series Stine was initially contracted for, Let's Get Invisible. In this book, Max and his friends discover a hidden room in their attic containing a mirror. When the light above the mirror is turned on, whoever is in front of the mirror becomes invisible. They have contests for who can stay invisible the longest, though the longer they stay invisible, the harder it becomes to come back. If they even do at all. This book had a similar plot hole to the camera, where if the user just stopped using the camera, using the mirror, there wouldn't be a problem. But, just like that book, Stine implemented different plot devices to ensure that characters were at least somewhat forced into using the evil devices. This book had a slower pace, but was still able to hold attention and deliver anxiety through powerful and intense scenes. Some of the series' most simple villains, a camera, a mirror, innocuous items that you have and use in your day-to-day life, show that things are not always as they seem. And the Goosebumps series certainly was not. The series was originally not expected to be popular, and Stine initially didn't even want to write them. However, thanks to pressure from his wife, who edited the Goosebumps books, as well as began Parachute Press with her partner, Stine agreed to do the series. Even without advertising, children spread through word of mouth just how good the series was, and thus, a series deemed to fail and get cancelled after book 6 became so popular that Stine was immediately contracted to write more, starting after book 6 to release an entry each month.
The #1 best-selling author in America, R.L. Stine, wants to give you lots and lots of goosebumps 3 different ways. First, Goosebumps books, where the terror began and the screams go on forever and ever. Then give yourself Goosebumps, the books where you choose from 20 different scary endings. And coming soon, Goosebumps triple header, 3 stories in one monstrous book, 3 times scarier. From Parachute Publishing and Scholastic Inc., available where books are sold. Write us to get information on how to join the all-new Goosebumps fan club. Goosebumps, they're so good, it's scary.
Robert Stine was born in Columbus, Ohio on October 8, 1943. As a kid, he was very shy and preferred to write in his room as opposed to playing outside. Stine made all kinds of unique stories, comic books, and joke books. Reading his autobiography, It Came From Ohio, My Life as a Writer, I related a lot to Stine's childhood, as I made countless books and stories myself, including my own Goosebumps stories. After college, where he focused his efforts on working on the school newspaper, Stine moved to New York City to pursue writing full-time. He began his relationship with Scholastic there, where he wrote school magazines and joke books under the pen name Jovial Stine. Stine married Jane Waldhorn in 1969, who, with a partner, began Parachute Press. Jane, as mentioned, was the influence that pushed Stine to create the Goosebumps series, and became the main editor. Stine is grateful for his wife's influence and her strong and strict editorial skills. He fondly remembered instances of just one correction at the top of his drafts, stating only, "psychotic ramblings." The two have worked as a team to successfully propel Stine's writing to mainstream audiences and made Goosebumps into the popular franchise it became. Stine's other works include Mostly Ghostly, Fear Street, Stine Tinglers, and more. The original run of Goosebumps, however, was the most popular of his works, selling between 1 and 5 million copies a month, becoming the #1 best-selling children's series of all time. 60 of the original 62 Goosebumps covers were illustrated by Tim Jacobus. Jacobus was born April 21, 1959, in New Jersey, and got into art thanks to a commercial art class at a local tech school when he was a high school senior. After a tough time starting out, Jacobus built up a positive reputation with Scholastic and was hired to illustrate the first book in the Goosebumps series, Welcome to Dead House, while Jim Thiessen was hired for Stay Out of the Basement. Scholastic preferred Jacobus' illustration over Thiessen's and decided to hire Jacobus for every other entry in the mainline series, save for Be Careful What You Wish For. Jacobus stated that Scholastic preferred his illustrations because of one simple thing: color. Jacobus' art is full of color. Saturated, eye-catching, beautiful color. The dangerous reds and oranges in Dead House, the colorful, gorgeous sunset just dark enough to mask the creature clawing its way into the brightly lit leaf green tent in Camp Nightmare, the calming purple and blue sky surrounding the moon, perfectly matching the tones of the clothes shed by the werewolf as it transforms above a bubbling neon lime-tinted fever swamp. An optimistic and girly pink and green bedroom, perfectly offset by a dark and eerie ventriloquist dummy sitting menacingly upright at the foot of the unnaturally tinted bed. The alien emerald tones of the egg monster's shell as the revolting golden brown being oozes down the egg carton onto a furious flaming orange countertop, contrasted by baby blue calming cabinets. Thunder crashing in a passionate pink sky, distracting onlookers from the ginormous hand attempting to snatch up the boy, hiding under the green and purple striped bedsheets, room lit up by an unseen light, drowned in deep, warm yellows and scarlets, and don't go to sleep. a hint of a powerful sunset slowly being overtaken by a deep gray sky. Beneath it, yellows from the dying sun, highlighting a terrifying being emerging from a chilling lake. Tim Jacobus, along with the cover designers whom Jacobus praised, made this series pop. While Goosebumps would have done just fine no matter the artwork, Jacobus's mind-bending strange perspectives, ugly, unnerving patterns, saturated, pungent, unnatural and contrasting colors, and of course, horrifying monsters, made this series even more special. While some are sillier than others, there is no doubt that Jacobus's Goosebumps cover illustrations are simply masterpieces.
They're coming to KFC. Now get 4 Goosebumps books for just $1.99 each with any purchase, including the mega meal. There's so much food, it's scary. But hurry, it won't be long before Goosebumps books disappear. Don't say you're not hungry.
The original 62 Goosebumps books contain a wide variety of monsters and scenarios, ranging from silly to absolutely horrifying. The diverse array of monsters and villains was not only a sight to behold in terms of creativity, especially when expertly brought to life by Jacobus, but also contributed immensely to the series' success. Naturally, a horror series should have intense, frightening antagonists, and many entries do. The Scarecrows, Mummy, Werewolf of Fever Swamp, The Haunted Mask, and the Ghosts all serve their purpose well as terrifying villains. There were also villains that weren't scary in terms of creep factor and general physical danger, like a ghoul or werewolf. Rather, they provoked anxiety in the reader because they functioned more as thriller antagonists. Villains such as the camera from Say Cheese and Die, either predicting the future or causing bad events to happen, the reflections in the mirror trying to replace the kids in Let's Get Invisible, and the worms in Go Eat Worms, to name a few, all present some psychological horror aspects that create anxiety in the reader. Some of the Goosebumps villains were just plain silly. Egg monsters from Mars, the Monster Blood 4 slug monsters, the giant reeking purple blob known as King Jelly Jam, lawn gnomes, the Gruel and evil kitchen sponge. Yes, a lot of the villains in the original Goosebumps run were silly, but that was part of the charm. Stine knew a series for kids couldn't take itself too seriously, and even if a monster was kind of goofy, they always posed some form of real threat. That is why some of the most iconic Goosebumps villains were the ones that walked the line between goofy and seriously scary. Slappy, the Horrorland Horrors, Monster Blood, the skeleton mascot Curly, the list goes on. While each of these characters could have their goofy moments, like Slappy's bad jokes and throwing up green odorous liquid, each character could also be insanely threatening, like that same Slappy threatening to cut one of the kids' heads off with hedge trimmers in a later Goosebumps series. A lot of the Horrorland rides were plays on words, puns, but behind the kooky spooky thrills and chills caricature the park put on was true danger. Stine knew that kids like to have a good time, have fun, but they also enjoy being scared. When the villains walked that fine, fine line, they shined. And when they didn't, when a story or monster was not as well received, it didn't matter. The Twilight Zone-esque anthology format acted as a safety net for the series, allowing Stine to create sequels for monsters that were popular and move on from those that were not as well received. If one book wasn't as well liked, the next one could make up for it, and then some.
We'll be right back after these messages. And now, back to our show.
The Goosebumps television show began airing on Fox Kids and YTV in 1995, was largely a success, and went on to last for a total of 4 seasons with 74 episodes. The series functioned exactly as the books, as an anthology, and each episode was based on certain installments of the original 62 Goosebumps books, Tales to Give You Goosebumps, and Goosebumps Series 2000. After previously working on a show with Scholastic and starting his own production company, producer Steve Levitan and Scholastic agreed to start working on a Goosebumps television show, despite only 8 to 10 books being published at the time. Levitan stated that a children's anthology series needing different characters, monsters, and sets for each episode was incredibly expensive, but because it was the only live-action version of Goosebumps pitched, he believes it was the reason R.L. Stine agreed to the production. The show was able to get many powerful actors, some already well-known, and some who would go on to become much larger stars. Notably, Ryan Gosling played Greg in Say Cheese and Die, Lorna Vandervoort, who would go on to play Supergirl in Smallville, starred as Nadine in the Haunted House Game episode, and Sheena Deep in parts 1 and 2 of Deep Trouble. Hayden Christensen, Anakin Skywalker himself, played Zane in both parts of Night of the Living Dummy 3, and Batman himself, Adam West, played the very campy Galloping Gazelle in Attack of the Mutant. West only agreed to the role because they let him keep the costume. The star power was not the only draw of the show, however. The costumes, especially the monster suits, sets, and puppeteering, truly made the show special. There was hardly any use of CGI at all. The show relied on realistic, practical effects that required long, strenuous days, rushing to complete projects on time for the shoot, notably the Slappy puppet to function as needed for each shot. And it paid off. Big time.
Wedding day, and I want my bride.
Many fans speculate about why certain episodes like Night of the Living Dummy were never made, though nearly all of the sequels to it at the time were. Though some fans think the episodes were lost, the true explanation is much simpler. Levitan explained that the process for picking the episodes was reading the books and deciding whether they can be adapted well into a show. The very first episode of Season 1 was a 2-part episode, both airing on October 27, 1995, right before Halloween, The Haunted Mask. The premiere was watched by nearly 8 million households, and its VHS release would sell nearly 3 million units. The show and the book series' popularity went hand in hand. Levitan stated, quote, "The books were selling 1 million a month. When the show started airing, they went up to 5 million a month. We knew the series was becoming popular, if not more than the books." Subsequent VHS and DVD releases of the show were hot sellers as well.
The Haunted Mask, the first video based on the best-selling Goosebumps books by R.L. Stine. Cool, huh? The Haunted Mask is all the fun and creepiness of a great Goosebumps story come to life. But it's too weird for words. And best of all, you can watch it over and over, anytime you want. Okay. The Haunted Mask, the first Goosebumps video ever from Fox Video.
The show's popularity was without a doubt aided by the iconic and highly recognizable theme song by composer Jack Lenz, who composed all music in the show as well. The title sequence's imagery was also iconic, beginning with R.L. Stine's briefcase falling open, releasing his writing and horrifying characters upon the world, followed by trailing the iconic G-shadow through the town as dogs and even street signs reveal themselves to be something more than what they initially appear, as well as spooky scenes from the show. Anyone who hears this small stem will know exactly what show it's from. An instantly recognizable theme is the thing that makes a show, as well as the show itself being considered good overall, of course. But no matter the content of each episode, everyone knew Pokemon, everyone knew Batman, everyone knew Scooby-Doo, and everyone knew Goosebumps. just by the theme alone. The rest of Season 1 aired until May 1996 with 3 episodes a month, containing episodes like The Girl Who Cried Monster, Night of the Living Dummy 2, A Night in Terror Tower, and The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. The series was renewed for 3 more seasons, with subsequent seasons containing episodes like The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns, and Bride of the Living Dummy. Some of the weirder, less enjoyed episodes like Strained Peas and An Old Story aired during Season 3, and after that season, writers Billy Brown and Dan Angel left the show, prompting Ron Oliver to become a showrunner, dropping the total episode count down to 4 2-part episodes. Oliver's personal favorite of the final season, if not the show, was Crive the Cat, which he described as changing it from the Pet Sematary-inspired roots of the book into a meta version of the show, a behind-the-scenes documentary of Goosebumps, and then it became a horror story. Oliver stated he remembers sending the script to the Stines, and knowing the show, along with the Fox Kids network, was slowly dying down, the Stines greenlit the project and responded saying, "You're either completely insane, or this is the best episode of the entire series." The original book series was also adapted into a 2015 film and 2018 sequel, as well as a 2023 series for the Disney Plus streaming service, though each were only very loosely based on the source material. Though the first Goosebumps film was positively reviewed, the 2023 show was not held in high regard by critics or even many fans. While the original 90s show may have been cheesy and poorly acted at times, it is clear that it captured the essence and soul of the Goosebumps series much better than the modern adaptations, leaving fans craving something similar to be released in the future. It is without a doubt that the Goosebumps show helped pronounce so-called Goosebumps fever, pushing Goosebumps further into mainstream attention.
Step right up, ladies and gentlemen. Next Saturday morning for a Slappy Sideshow Saturday. Only on Fox Kids. I'm Slappy, and you're in for more thrills than you can possibly imagine. Just think, you'll see all the freakiest Fox Kids creatures in action. So remember, be here next Saturday morning for Slappy Sideshow Saturday on the only place that rocks kids, Fox Kids. You know, you really should try to get some sun.
There have been multiple video games under the Goosebumps name, including PC games based on the original series, a Horrorland game released as a tie-in with the Horrorland series, and movie tie-in games. The PC games are the only Goosebumps games based solely on the mainline series, consisting of Escape from Horrorland and Attack of the Mutant. Escape from Horrorland was released in 1996 and is a full-motion video, linear point-and-click adventure game that acts as a direct sequel to Book 16, One Day at Horrorland. Though other sequels have been released in the series, thus rendering the game non-canon, it is still an important part of Goosebumps history. The game follows the characters from the original Horrorland book, Lizzie, Luke, and their friend Clay, getting sucked back into the Horrorland theme park. Player must help them solve puzzles to escape. While the acting is never quite top-notch, there is no doubt that this game captures the goofy but eerie essence of the 90s show, and thus the book series, perfectly. The game, riding heavily on the massive success of the book series and television show, involved big names like Steven Spielberg, included stars like Jeff Goldblum and Isabella Rossellini, and was developed by DreamWorks Interactive, receiving $50 million of funding from Bill Gates to specifically aid the Goosebumps game's development. The game relied heavily on practical effects over CGI, implementing massive and fantastically crafted monster costumes. miniature models for the streets of the park, and green screens to put the characters into the sets. There is no doubt that DreamWorks Interactive spared no expense with the amount of work, talent, and creativity put into the game. Once sucked into Horrorland, the three main characters lead the player through each stage, where various puzzles must be solved, like blocking the statue's laser eyes with glasses. The player heads through Werewolf Village, getting chased by the werewolf, the plaza with a theater and museum, Bat Barn, Valley of the Kings, where hieroglyphics must be matched up to avoid death by sand, and then get chased by a mummy after saving Luke. Once the mummy's ring is restored by a spell, the player heads to Dracula's castle in Vampire Village to meet Goldblum and Rossellini's characters. Lizzie seemingly kills Dracula after the player pickpockets him while he dances with Lizzie, but he returns to chase the player out of the castle. There was also a dungeon section for coin collecting, similar to the feeling of Doom, and even though the monster looked kind of goofy, the section was very suspenseful. After a brief visit to a spooky zoo filled with creepy creatures, the ending of the game involves the player saving the Morris family from the evil Dr. Storm and blowing up Horrorland. While the game overall was short and underwhelming, Goosebumps Escape from Horrorland sold 130,000 units domestically, won Best Kids Game in Time magazine, was named the 11th best-selling computer game of December 1996, and was a finalist for the Best Adaptation of Linear Media Award. Attack of the Mutant was released in 1997, a year after its predecessor, Escape from Horrorland, and was also developed by DreamWorks Interactive. This is a first-person game similar to Escape from Horrorland, but without the point-and-click element. In this game, the player arrives at the mutants' headquarters and must stop the evil masked mutant. This game only had real actors right at the very beginning, and then opted for fully CGI characters, which look incredibly strange since they were supposed to look like comic book characters, but in the real world. While it is understandable that the first game was so expensive that shooting full-motion video scenes again would not be good business decision-making, these characters look so outlandish and not real that it fails entirely to feel like Goosebumps. The design of the map does look like its book and television counterparts, but it is clear that this is a comic book superhero story first, a corporate cash-in second, and a Goosebumps game last. And a very cringy one at that. Most Goosebumps properties have some level of cheesiness to them, as a sort of wink of irony, but this game is simply just cringy.
Bring me the human intruder, and you will replace Chinchilla.
Do I have your word?
Do I have your loyalty?
Only time will tell.
That said, here is Attack of the Mutant. So the player exits the bus at the mutants' headquarters and meets Dinah from the League of Good Guys.
Easy, I'm not gonna hurt you. Listen, we're here to stop the mutant.
Yikes, why do they move like that? They are there to defeat the masked mutant and his plan to turn the world into a comic book? Anyway, the player uses an elevator and is immediately attacked by the first enemy, which can be defeated by a hammer. Then, the masked mutant himself is overheard, afraid of the newcomer, as this team of villains does not know the player's weakness. Then the player heads into the garden area to defeat Root Rot with a swarm of bees. Then, after completing a short maze, the player gets the first piece of creating a superhero suit and goes through a portal back into the building. The rest of the game plays out similarly. The player saves heroes, like painting the Galloping Gazelle the correct color again to bring him back to life, who is again voiced by Adam West himself.
Nice work. I'm now back and ready to rumble.
Returning to the role from his TV episode version of the character, defeating villains and collecting pieces of the player's new costume. The graphics, aside from the strange-looking and moving characters, still hold up fairly well. While the controls, especially in the ice platforming stages, were difficult to manage at times, there is no denying the creativity in creating the stages and stage design. The player navigates through many different environments, finally landing on the final stage, defeating the masked mutant by blowing up his machine.
Look what you've gone and done!
The player is then made an honorary member of the League of Good Guys. It is obvious why this was the last Goosebumps game from DreamWorks Interactive, and there was not another Goosebumps game made until 2008. The Masked Mutant game did not represent the Goosebumps brand well, and though it was loosely similar in style and tone to the episode, it was far too goofy to be considered eerie or even good. The good portions of the game were of course Adam West returning for the Galloping Gazelle, the environmental graphics and Doom-style first-person attacking gameplay. But while it is typically not good to judge a book, or game rather, by its cover, with this one, what you see here is what you get. Despite the Mutant game not being as well received, there is no doubt that including games into the Goosebumps franchise helped boost the brand's popularity in the public spotlight.
And a Christmas celebration with the creepiest characters this side of Horrorland are coming your way.
Yoo-hoo! I'm here at the annual Goosebumps Fright Show Christmas party, and it's a weird one. No thanks, I'm allergic to monster blood. Oh, sweet. Oh, well, that would make a lovely centerpiece. Oh, nothing like rats and sauerkraut. No, you know, I usually don't kiss giant hamsters on the first date. Merry Christmas to all. Gotta go.
Walt Disney World, riding the success of the Goosebumps franchise, opened a smaller-scale Goosebumps attraction in 1997, a Fright show and funhouse.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Goosebumps Horrorland Fright Show proudly presents, live on our stage, the Master of Magic, the Illuminator of Illusion, the Wizard of Wonder, the Tool Man of Trickery, Okay, we get the point. Amazo, the Magician. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the illustrious Goosebumps Sideshow.
The Fright show starred the magician Amazo from Bad Hair Day, along with Slappy, Curly the Skeleton, the Mummy Prince Ko-Ru, and Cuddles the Hamster. Slappy, along with the other villains, hijacks Amazo's show, wanting to turn the kids participating from the audience into his slaves. After Amazo and the kids scare Slappy and the monsters away, the audience is told to visit the Goosebumps Funhouse. The Funhouse was a mirror maze that was initially easy to get through, but over time had more Goosebumps villains and references, as well as difficulty added. The Goosebumps attraction in Walt Disney World lasted for 1 year, and was closed November 1st, 1998, likely due to declining book sales and declining viewership of the TV show. The section of the park has since been torn down entirely. All that remains of the Goosebumps attraction lies in video recordings and memories of dedicated fans.
Hi, happy holidays, everybody. I'm R.L. Stine, and I'm here with some members of my special family. Slappy, Cuddles, the Executioner, and Prince Ko-Ru. From our Goosebumps family to yours, happy holidays.
Can you identify who it was that frightened you, ma'am?
I'll try.
This Halloween, terrifying creatures are on the loose at Taco Bell.
It's them!
Wanted Goosebumps at Taco Bell, Slappy's Candy Keeper, Cuddles the Horrible Hamster, Rapid Mummy, and Skullmobile. Get them now. Goosebumps collectibles only at Taco Bell.
Goosebumps was a franchise consisting of many different mediums. What began as books became television, video games, even a Disney park attraction, and naturally, Goosebumps also had commercial merchandise. Being contracted with Scholastic, there were many options for bookmarks, pens, ink stampers, bookends, birthday party plates and cups, calendars, notebooks, lunch bags, backpacks, desk caddies, tape dispensers, and even glue sticks. There were board games including Horrorland and Terror Tower, Halloween costumes including a horror, Slappy, and a voice-changing haunted mask. Goosebumps also released action figures of many characters from the book covers, as well as fixed-image LCD handheld games, where each cartridge was one of the titles, like Night of the Living Dummy or Say Cheese and Die. Some of the more zanier merchandise included toothbrush holders, alarm clocks, and a door handle resembling the hand from Stay Out of the Basement. Goosebumps also contained advertisements for the Goosebumps fan club inside the back of the books, where readers could send a check and receive Goosebumps merchandise like stickers, folders, and game sheets in the mail. With such heavy merchandising of the book and television series, along with video games and theme park tie-ins, Goosebumps was everywhere in the mid to late 90s.
Goosebumps. Terror in the graveyard game. Goosebumps. Get through the graveyard alive or be changed into a monster. Goosebumps. Terror in the graveyard game. Collect bells. Avoid hidden traps. Find the magic ring. Defeat the headless ghost. I win! Goosebumps. Terror in the graveyard game.
The mainline Goosebumps series ended its run in 1997 with Book 62, Monster Blood 4, due to a legal dispute between Scholastic and Stine's wife's publishing company, Parachute Press. Despite the legal dispute, however, Stine's beloved series and franchise Goosebumps would not come to an end. R.L. Stine, the mastermind behind the mainline 62-book, iconic Goosebumps franchise, which spawned a 4-season television show, video games, a Disney attraction, countless merchandise, and, of course, millions of dollars, would move on to write a spin-off series the following year, Goosebumps Series 2000. The 90s were truly the time for Goosebumps fans. Though declining in popularity due to technology pulling attention away from reading in general, the franchise is still alive and thriving to this day, with Stine never giving up on his goal of the series: to give you Goosebumps. Hey guys, I'm Matthew. Thank you for watching my Goosebumps Original Series retrospective. On October 25th, we are actually putting out a Goosebumps fan film based on Night of the Living Dummy, and we put a lot of care, a lot of love into it, and we hope from the bottom of our hearts that you guys will check it out and share it around. I'm also planning on doing Goosebumps retrospectives on Series 2000 and Horrorland, as well as individual book reviews, so please consider subscribing and sharing my videos around so I can keep making them for you. Anyways, see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.